am Sam Gillies, Secretary of the Engineers and Architects of Hawaii. This program is from a presentation I gave in May of 2018 titled Honolulu Present and Past. In the presentation, I give a tour starting at Honolulu Harbor. The tour then proceeds through downtown, looking at past and present buildings. Please share any of your comments with us. Mahalo.
When I look out our office windows and watch the new high-rises going up and look down on Iolani Palace, the Supreme Court buildings, and the old post office, I try to imagine what was Honolulu like when there were only these buildings. What did King Street look like? Can you imagine Waikiki without a single hotel? Or Mo'ili'ili full of rice paddies? Could anyone have imagined the ridges of the Koholau Mountains covered with homes? People used to arrive in Honolulu by ship at Honolulu Harbor. What would it have been like to arrive and sail into Honolulu Harbor on one of the old sailing ships? Would you have been trying to play an ukulele for the first time? Can you imagine traveling back in time? Could you imagine what this skyline would have looked like over 100 years ago? Would you recognize where the federal courthouse would be built? Would you recognize downtown Honolulu without these 30-story office buildings? We recognize the twin towers of the Kaumakapili Church. This is before it would burn down in the Chinatown fire. Our ship arrives at the piers near Nu'uanu Stream. This is directly in front of John Thomas Waterhouse's import company. On this 1897 map of Honolulu, you can see Nu'uanu River. You can also see Hotel Street, King Street, Queen Street, Merchant Street, and Nu'uanu Avenue. The ship is at the pier at the foot of Nu'uanu Avenue. Let's start our tour of Old Honolulu by going up Nu'uanu Avenue to Merchant Street. Turning down Merchant Street, we find the first building we recognize, the old post office building. The Kamehameha V post office was Hawaii's first building constructed exclusively of precast concrete blocks with iron bar reinforcement, J. Osborne, a mason and builder from England, was commissioned by Kamehameha V to design the structure seen here in the early 1880s. The concrete blocks proved difficult during construction as they required constant wetting in order to cure properly. The building was completed in 1871 and the post office moved from the old Honolulu Harbor building located next door into the ground floor. The post office headquarters remained at the structure until 1922 when it moved into the U.S. Post Office Customs House and Courthouse building at the corner of Merchant and Richard Street. This building is a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark as designated by the American Society of Civil Engineers. The next building we recognize is just across Merchant Street, the Bishop and Company Bank, seen here about 1880. It was designed by architect T.J. Barker and constructed of brick with a stucco exterior. Continuing down Merchant Street, we wouldn't find Bishop Street in 1897, but jumping ahead about 30 years, Bishop Street would be built between Fort Street and Alakea Street. Let's watch as the Alexander and Baldwin building is constructed at Bishop and Merchant Street. This is the Alexander and Baldwin building. Let's watch as it was constructed in 1928. These pictures were taken from January 1928 till May 1929. Let's look at it a little bit slowly. This is the cleared lot on January 16th, 1928. This is a temporary ramp they installed to excavate the basement. Here it looks like they're reinforcing the foundation of the adjacent building. Here they're completing the forms for the first retaining wall. The temporary ramp is still installed. This looks like the concrete plant. This looks like the architects Dickey and Wood. Looks like they have completed the first concrete retaining wall. 4 days later, the initial retaining walls has been completed, and we get a visit from Dickey and Wood. The Castle and Cook building. It looks like they're plastering or waterproofing the first retaining wall. The forms for the second concrete retaining wall have been completed. These are the concrete wheelbarrows. It looks like they're building a temporary platform for the concrete wheelbarrows. May 7th, 14 days later, the second foundation wall has been completed and all the scaffolding and forms have been removed. Here is the heavy lift crane that will be used to erect the steel building. Here is the horsepower behind this heavy lift crane. Note the pulley in the background. The men controlling the boom. This crane looks like it is constructed entirely of wooden timbers, so it is very easy to disassemble, move, and reassemble to make it very portable for use around the construction site. The first steel has been erected. The crane has been set up behind the steel and will simply be pulled back as the steel is installed. The crane has been relocated to the top story to complete the construction. The boom has not yet been installed. The boom has been installed and the third floor steel installation has started. Six months later, the steel installation has been completed and the crane has been removed. May 6th, 1929, nearing completion, about 18 months after starting. Continuing down Bishop Street, also constructed at this time, was the Dillingham Transportation Building. Benjamin F. Dillingham was the founder of the breakthrough railroad business known as Oahu Railway and Land Company. After his death in 1918, the company was operated by his son Walter F. Dillingham, who was later responsible for major developments across Oahu. The Dillingham Transportation Building, completed in 1929 to house office space, was another example of the Italian Renaissance style favored during this era. The structure's three wings are joined together by an arcade facing Bishop Street, while cut stone was used to decorate the facade. Backtracking, let's visit the Kaumakapili Church at Beretania and Smith Street. Kaumakapili Church is Oahu's second oldest church. Its initial structure, dedicated in 1839, was made of adobe and topped with a thatched pili grass roof. The church was built for native Hawaiians who lived in the area. Nu'uanu Stream flooded on March 24, 1898. The church can be seen in the background. Chinatown was never planned or laid out in an organized way. It was a dense matrix of wooden buildings, narrow dirt streets, and hidden alleyways. The story goes that in 1886, a Chinese lottery was being conducted in a restaurant. One of the gamblers, claiming that the cheating was going on, snatched the raffle tickets and thrust them into a fire. Another pulled them out, and in a scramble, the wallpaper became ignited, and the building was soon a mass of flames. The flames burned for 3 days. The fire destroyed 8 blocks, including 7,000 Chinese and 350 homes. The Kaumakapili Church survived the first Chinatown fire of 1886. The church was not so lucky during the second Chinatown fire on January 20, 1900. The bubonic plague had struck the city, and Chinatown had been placed under quarantine. On January 20th, while trying to eradicate the plague, authorities deliberately set alight a plague victim's home, and the fire quickly got out of control. Hundreds of Chinese and Japanese fled in panic, carrying with them whatever meager belongings that they could carry. The Hawaii National Guard was called out to control the thousands of people streaming into King Street. The fire made 3,800 people homeless, and 6,000 buildings were gutted. No lives were lost to the fire, but the plague claimed 71 victims. It took until April 30th, 1900, till Honolulu was free of the Black Death. Next, let's go down to the corner of Bethel and King Street. At the corner of Bethel and North King, the location of the old Macy's and the current Walmart store, was the Bethel Street Church and the Temperance Fountain, which was meant to tempt sailors away from the drinks and sins available on Hotel Street. The church burned down in the 1886 fire. Just down King Street from the Bethel Church would have been Bernice Pauahi Bishop's childhood home, where she was born. When Pauahi was born, her father planted a tamarind tree in the yard, but first placed Pauahi's iwi, afterbirth, in the ground to supply nourishment to the tree. The home was located very close to the corner of King Street and Bishop Street. When the city wanted to build a street into downtown, they asked Mr. Bishop for part of his yard and named the street Bishop Street, and the park was named Tamarind Park. Pauahi's home would have been about where the Bishop Building is today. And what remains of Tamarind Park is in front of the American Savings Bank Building, or Pauahi Tower. The American Savings Building sets where the Alexander Hotel had been built. There was a garden restaurant on the roof with a view of Honolulu Harbor. Can you imagine getting off the streetcar and walking up the new Bishop Street, past the shops, and stopping to have lunch at the Hotel Cafe? Or being on Bishop Street to sign the statehood petition. Executive Center Hotel is under construction on the left. Bishop Street ended at Hotel Street at this time. Let's look at another downtown hotel at the corner of Hotel and Richard Street. The original Royal Hawaiian Hotel was the first hotel in Hawaii to be lit by electricity. It opened on March 1st, 1872. It was built during the reign of King Kalakaua. English writer Isabella Bird said, "It is entered from a garden under two semicircular flights of stairs which lead to the front entrance. Hospitality seems to take possession of an appropriate one as soon as one enters its never-closed doors." The hotel is constructed so that a breeze whispers through it day and night. Across Richard Street was the Central Union Church at the corner of Richards and Beretania. For 45 years, the hotel held its own against competition from the Alexander Young Hotel and the new glamorous hotels on Waikiki Beach. Business fell off, and in 1917 the remodeled hotel became the Army-Navy YMCA. It was finally replaced in 1928 by a new building, which is currently owned by the state and is home of the Hawaii State Art Museum. During the war, the YMCA was very popular with visiting Army and Navy men, and especially the entertainment across the street at the Black Cat Cafe. Here's a look at the menu. This is the Royal Brewery on Queen Street, which has now been converted to condominiums. The Honolulu Iron Works plant was built in 1899 at the corner of Punch Bowl and Ala Moana, but originally it had started on Merchant Street near Nu'uanu Avenue. It was founded by D.M. Watson, who was the inventor of the suspended centrifuge for drying sugar. The Honolulu Iron Works built 17 sugar factories in Hawaii, 16 in the Philippines, 6 in Formosa, 2 in Cuba, and others in Santo Domingo, Jamaica, Mexico, and Louisiana. It also remodeled 62 plants worldwide. In the 1930s, construction of sugar mills in Hawaii stopped abruptly. In 1975, the Honolulu Iron Works was broken up and sold. The Restaurant Row complex was constructed in its place. It is interesting to note the original route of Ala Moana at that time and hard to recognize downtown Honolulu. Honolulu's skyline continues to change. Watch how the skyline in Kaka'ako has changed in just the last 8 years. These pictures were taken from my office window in 2010 and 2018. Can you count all the new high-rises? I count 3 in this picture. Let's look in another area. In 2010, I could still see the top of Diamond Head from my window. Let's watch that again. I count at least 7 new high-rises. I know there are more I can't see. I hope you enjoyed my tour of Honolulu now and then. I'll leave you with a picture of the old racetrack at Kapiolani Park and Punch Bowl in the distance.
Engineers and architects of Hawaii welcome your comments on this program and any of our recent programs. We encourage your direct participation in this community outreach. So please email us your comments and ideas at eahawaii@gmail.com.